Good day, my name is Christelle from Klerk, Independent Technical Analysts. The first one on our list is the STXMMT Momentum Portfolio ETF. And we can see that this ETF is caught within a symmetrical triangle. It changed that upper band at 1229 now into a support. And the big test is, will that upper band remain a support? Should it keep it a support, we can assume that the momentum to the top can continue, maybe back to these record high levels of 13 Rand 50. If I change this to a candle graph, you can see, and there's a little bit more noise, you can see that last week this ETF tested the low of at 1226. It tested that upper band. It kept it as support, closed above it. That is seen as positive. And the same this week. It went as low as 1229, kept it as support, and is trading above it. So as long as that 1229 remains a support, we can assume that the optimism around the symmetrical triangle is still in place. As soon as the ETF starts to trade below that, then obviously seen as negative. Keep in mind that these are weekly graphs, so you ignore the action within the week. You only look at it at a Friday close and say, my candle is finished now. If I'm happy whether it's above it, I keep it. If I need to take a profit, I do that on the following Monday. My 40-week moving average is the long-term sentiments meter. It's trading at 1218. I assume that the long-term sentiment towards this ETF remains positive as long as that moving average is a support. Obviously, strong support there around 1188 is also a critical level you can write down. As soon as this ETF starts to trade below it, we can expect some downside, and an ugly inverse cup and handle formation will be confirmed. My MACD confirms that the bullish trend is still in place. My 26 and 9-day moving average on the signal line still a support pointing upwards, implying that the trend is still upwards. For this ETF, it has not changed it into a negative yet. The next one on our list is STXNDA, the MSCI India ETF. And this ETF obviously have had a massive rally to the top. It was listed there, newly listed there in around February 2022. Had a little bit of a pullback, but very important. Once that 40-week moving average changed into a support, I mean, this ETF just flew to higher levels. Very important. It's starting to make lower highs. And 83.91 is a critical support coming from that week of the 11th of March. Should this ETF start to trade below that 83.91 level, a inverse cup and handle formation will be confirmed, which implies that the top in this ETF might be in place should 83.91 change into a resistance. Only when the ETF starts to trade above that upper band of the handle yet, and I'll give you that level now, can you assume that the warning is off the table and that the momentum to the top can continue again. And that level is waiting at 87.14. Above 87.14, the warning of the inverse cup and handle will become obsolete. Obviously, inverse cup and handle is the same as confirmation of lower highs. Very, very important. So what can happen is obviously this ETF can test that level of 83.91 a couple of times and bounce. We don't know that yet, but you want a point to make a decision. It's not guaranteed, but have some indication that you are taking profit. Also on my MACD, have a look there. The trend has already turned around. The bars have turned red on my MACD, implying that the trend on the MACD is now bearish. My 26 and 9-day moving averages has also crossed one another to the downside, confirmation of a bearish trend on the MACD. So keep from a technical perspective, we can hold on to this ETF as long as 83.91 remains a support. As soon as it starts to trade and consolidate below it, you can consider taking profit, because that implies that the inverse cup and handle formation will be confirmed. However, nothing stops you from taking profit beforehand. If you're happy with your profit, then take that. You can't eat a whole cake. You'll become a diabetic and very sick. But if you have a slice every now and again, you will gain weight. And that's what you want to happen with your account. You want to take the slices so that your account, your trading account, can grow bigger. Obviously, the record high on this ETF is waiting at 88 Rand 96 on a line graph, and above that level, we can assume then again for record highs. What you can do if you want, Johan, is use Fibonacci levels. So you take a recent high and a recent low, and you project of where this ETF can go to. And we can see, let me just zoom that in for you. The first level of resistance after that 88.96 level is 92 Rand and 8 cents. And you can, go higher, 97.13. So you can use the Fibonacci levels to say, hey, what are the levels of resistance, of record levels that this ETF can go into above the 88.96 level. But I've said now a couple of times, 83.91 is the critical level of support on this ETF that needs to remain in place. Anglo American, ticker on our exchange, AGL. Also, one of the commodity shares have struggled for a long time, started to turn around with higher lows and a cup and handle formation. My bullish trend on the MACD is still in place. Beautiful green bars to the upside. My 40-week moving average has now changed into a support, and that is seen as positive. Now, the big test is, will it remain a support? Will 497 Rand 43 remain a support on Anglo American? If it does, I assume that the long-term sentiment remains positive. However, as soon as that level changes into a resistance again, can I say the negativity, the negative sentiment towards this ETF, this Anglo American, this share will be confirmed. Now we can see, if I use a horizontal line, we can see the big previous resistance on Anglo waits at 540 Rand 77. That is the critical level on that line graph in the week of the 27th of November. And above that level, we can assume higher levels again. However, that is a critical level that needs to be overcome, a resistance level, because that will imply that I've got enough buyers to shift and lift this share price to higher levels. 497.43 is where your 40-week moving average is waiting. Below that level, negative sentiment, and that is the level where I would say draw the line to take profits, unless you have a long-term view and say, listen, you want to hold on as long as possible. What is very positive about Anglo at the moment, Joan, is the fact that last week the candle tested the 40-week, kept it as support, and that is seen as a positive technical good buy case. So these are weekly graphs, so every candle represents the price action of a week. So only on Friday's close can you say, listen, we are still above the 40-week moving average, I am holding on to this share. Or listen, we've closed below the 40-week moving average, on Monday I'm making that call. Keep in mind that sometimes the 40-week moving average can give you a little bit of a whipsaw, right? So it can trade above it, below it, above it, below it. But that is the inconsistencies that you have to almost be prepared to live with when it comes to investing yourself on the stock market. But what you can do is technical analysis allows you to make a decision on probabilities and possibilities. And that's what you do. You say, listen, once it starts to trade below the 40-week moving average, that's when my long-term sentiment changes to negative, even if it's just for a week. And that's when I make my decision. Or listen, let's wait for 2 weeks then. But then be prepared that should the share price be a lot lower than that you have to take action. What is important is to have a strategy and to stick to it, because otherwise it just becomes very difficult to make decisions, because you will base that on a feeling and not about what the candles or the indicators or the moving average are saying. And if you don't have a strategy, it makes it very, very difficult, and then you have a lot of inconsistencies and it will be, emotionally it will not be good for your trading on the stock market. Standard Bank, ticker on our exchange, SBK. Also one of the shares that got really beaten. That double top that we've previously spoken about has played out now completely. The share is extremely oversold. Look at that. My bearish trend on the MACD is still in place. My 26 and 9-day moving average still pointing downwards. My red bars are still there. So my 40-week moving average, look at this. I was tested 1, 2, 3, 4 times. It kept it a resistance. That was enough confirmation for any technical analyst to say, listen, the long-term sentiment towards Standard Bank has now changed to negative, and we can see it. It's clearly pulling downwards. Now, I do not, although it is oversold, means the probability of it to turn around for higher levels is there. I don't have a turnaround on my MACD yet. I don't have a turnaround candle or a formation of some sort of turnaround. In fact, what we can see is we continue to see long upper shadows on my candles. What does that imply? It implies selling pressure. It tells me that the sellers are still keen to take profit on Standard Bank. And as long as that 40-week moving average running at 187.99 remains a resistance, the long-term sentiment will remain negative. At the moment, my first sign of strength will only be visible above last week's high, and that is waiting at 185 Rand 50. That will tell me that, listen, I've had enough buyers to lift this share price again above the high point of last week, because the whole of last week I did not have enough buyers on Standard Bank to keep 185 Rand 50 as support. So that will be, at the moment, my first sign of strength. Below last week's low at 172.80, I can assume then again that the momentum to the bottom can continue. We can see these levels there around 149.23 are critical, strong support levels. So, and then obviously again here, and you can draw as many horizontal lines or trend lines that you want to identify support and resistance. The more touching points there are in the line, the stronger it is. So 165.79 is a strong critical level that is of support, of a base, of a floor that is lying on this graph. And as long as that level remains a support, you can say, hey, listen, maybe the share can go there, test it again and bounce. But what we will only be able to say once the share reaches that. And it doesn't mean that it's going to go there even. But it is a level of support that one can keep an eye on. MTN. We saw a beautiful turnaround on MTN, but I mean, it was caught, and it's still caught within this falling wedge formation. And the falling wedge formation will only be confirmed once that upper band, this upper band, changes into a support, and that is waiting there at around 97.25, right? Now I draw in this horizontal line as well, a critical support level on this graph. It changed it into a resistance, and that is negative. It tells me that, listen, this share can go back all the way maybe and test this lower part of this lower band of the falling wedge formation. And if I project it, that can be anything around 78.97. But very important, this support here on MTN, that low of the week of the 26th of February, waiting at 77.53, is a critical level that needs to remain in place. So one, is it going to test that lower part of the falling wedge, that lower band? Or is it going to find support before that? And then obviously that support of 77.53 has to remain in place. Now, technically, one should have taken profit when, one, it was overbought, and two, when you started to see a long upper shadows on last week's candle and a bearish engulfing candle. So on the Monday, you would have made the decision to say, listen, I'm happy with my profit here, I am going to take it. And the fact that that strong support level has also changed into a resistance is seen as negative. But some of you might say, listen, I wasn't happy with my 6 or 5% profit. I want to keep it a little bit longer. Nothing wrong with that. If your position size is small enough, you can do that. Because why? You are still within a falling wedge formation. And your MACD is at the moment still positive. You're not going to take a loss here unless you trade with stop losses. But what you can do is say, wait, see what it does on the band. And then if you, depending on your exposure, you can maybe add to the position if you want to. Or if it's small enough and you want to keep it, then say, listen, I am waiting for this falling wedge formation to play out. And again, I want this 91 Rand 57 level to change into a support. Once it does that, it will imply that there's enough buyers again to lift the share price to higher levels. And then obviously the high of the week of the 8th of April, and that is waiting at 98 Rand 76. That is a critical level that needs to change into a support and remain one in order to sustain the momentum to the top on MTN. My 40-week moving average is waiting at 110 Rand 79. That is the level that will change the long-term sentiment to positive again. far away from that level, but yet a level that one needs to consider. Why? Because we can see in the past year how important that level was. Once it tested and it couldn't change it into a resistance, or it started to become a resistance, it was free fall on the MTN graph. That highlights the importance of the 40-week moving average on this MTN graph. Don't forget to send through your requests via MTN or via Twitter or email at admin@francedeklerk.com. Have a fantastic week. Take care.